Terribly sorry. I didn't realize I had my mute on there. Welcome to the webinar series today. My name is Heather Ryan, and I will be facilitating today's installment. We'd like to welcome you and thank you for joining us. Over the next few days, D2L will be hosting a number of webinars focusing on different tools that you can use within Brightspace and how educators can use them to engage with their learners. We are focusing on trying to direct these towards two different groups of learners, of teachers, educators, elementary and secondary users. We understand that there are some differences in the approach at how these tools will be used with the different sectors. So we wanted to try to make sure that we were providing specific tips or tricks that will be applicable to each one. Each one of the webinars running inside this series will be approximately 20 to 30 minutes long, depending on the topic. And during the webinar, we will be taking a very introductory look at how we can create and deliver content to students using the Content Lessons tool. The majority of this webinar will be centered around an instructional demo of the content tool that is used inside Brightspace. Again, my name is Heather Ryan. I am a customer success specialist at D2L. I have worked with D2L for the last couple of years supporting K-12 clients through their use of Brightspace. Prior to my time with D2L, I lived in Seoul, South Korea for 11 years, where I worked primarily in the elementary panel at an English immersion private school in Central Seoul. On the sheet here, you can see that I have gone ahead and added my Twitter handle. The reason I've done that is because we do tend to post a lot of our tips and tricks, tool updates or release notes, as well as any upcoming events that D2L is offering, such as these webinars using our Twitter. So following me on Twitter will provide you with those details and information. Before I get started, I just wanted to cover a couple of housekeeping items rather. First, I'll be referring to all of our clients using the term district today. Some areas will, like in Ontario, refer to their district as a school board. I know in Manitoba, it's often referred to as a division. But I wanted to just make sure that we're streamlining it here and it was very clear. So I will be trying to use the word district with reference to any of our clients. Secondly, I just wanted to let you know that all commenting and Q and answers have been disabled for the webinar series. The reason behind this is because these webinar series are open to all D2L K-12 educators from all districts. We only have a short period of time together. We wanted to make sure that we were focusing on the tools and that we were really paying attention to those details, and we won't be having the time to answer specific questions about certain districts or how the districts have their organizations set up. So instead, if you do have district's Brightspace administrator, they'll be able to answer questions specific to your area. In the event that you have tool questions, there is a questions email there, or you can actually refer to the list of resources that we will be supplying to you following the webinar. Finally, if your district is not using Brightspace, but you're here to explore it and see if there is some information that may be pertinent to you, please feel free to follow along. The webinars are meant to show you how the tools are used, not how to acquire it for your district. If you are interested in it, you can email the k12ont@d2l.com email address that's posted where it says questions, and they will be able to direct you to answering those questions. And again, I just want to reiterate that the slide deck and the resources that you are going to see today are going to be available to you, as well as this is a recorded session, and the session will be shared with you as well. And it would be something that you would be able to share as a resource with your fellow educators in the event that they were not able to attend. So I just want to go over quickly with the agenda that we have planned for today. So we're going to talk briefly to kick us off here with kind of the current state and to kind of explore what's going on related to COVID-19. Next, we're going to move on to look at kind of what is Brightspace, just to clarify some of the terms that have been kind of causing an influx of questions. So we just want to make sure that we highlight that. Finally, next we'll be moving on to kind of just highlighting a little bit about the webinar series and what's being offered this week as far as what's happening next from us. And then we'll dive into creating content and the bulk of our webinar today. And then I'll just highlight a few of the resources that we will be making available to you when this gets shared out. So the first point I just want to look at today is just that D2L is acknowledging that this is a very stressful time and it is a global phenomenon that we are all facing and dealing with, and that we're here to support schools and teachers with any transition to online learning that we can. So we are here to help. As we continue to hear more from our clients that do come from multiple different countries, we do plan to share those stories and those successes and those best practices as we move forward. So please be assured that as we continue to collect more information and hear more wonderful stories from our clients, we plan to share those practices and those stories with everyone else. We just want to make sure that everybody realizes that we are here to help, and that if you do need or require any resources, hopefully we can help you get those into place. As far as online learning goes, what we it's an alternate form of instruction that our new world is sending us into. But as an educator, there's a few considerations that we need to have. So some of those considerations are listed here. So with regards to content and resources, whether you're starting from scratch or you have experience teaching online in the past, being able to pull everything together and share those resources and content in one unified platform can be very beneficial, especially in these fast-moving times. So using a platform that allows you to pull those resources together to support students at home and to navigate their content can make things a little bit easier and more streamlined. Devices and internet access. Online learning is a valuable resource in times like these, but as educators, we need to be able to consider our students without internet and devices. And we all know that that is an issue that our districts are facing. For those learners that have older devices or computers at home, to make sure that they're not over focusing on apps can be very important. So one of the highlights of Brightspace is that it is a responsive design interface, which means that it doesn't require the newest operating system to be able to function. On older devices, it is functional as long as you're using a browser. So it doesn't limit the use to or very new devices. It can be used on a desktop or older devices as well. And it's wonderful that as we continue to hear these stories from around the North America and around the world about how communities are pulling together to really support each other in these times and help to support those students that maybe don't have those devices. So those are wonderful feel-good stories that we're hearing about devices or offering hotspots or even free internet. When we think about the next step being support at home, parents are also in this new world. So it's a new balancing act between work and supporting our students and making sure that everybody is continuing to move forward. So being able to make sure that you consider how much support parents can provide and then choose online tools that allow you to also communicate with them in one easy place is going to be an important decision to be made. A next point on here is accessibility and equity. And as we look at online tools, we need to consider whether or not they're going to meet the needs of all of our learners. So tools like Brightspace are WCAG compliant, which means that they can be used with screen readers and various accessibility devices, which is something that's very important at D2L, that we're trying to make sure that our platform is accessible to all. Another thing that's a very important consideration is security, privacy, and personal information. If we're asking our students to use online tools, we need to make sure that their data is protected. Tools like Brightspace have a license with your district and have been properly vetted and can offer that reassurance. D2L never owns student or teacher content or data. So that's also something to be very important to be aware of as you move forward. And then the final one is synchronous versus asynchronous learning. So having synchronous lessons like video conferences is a great tool. However, it's important to keep in mind that some households will only have one device that children are sharing. Having an online plan that also allows for asynchronous learning, physical breaks, and household schedules will be important for the success of any online learning. As we move forward, we think about how today we're going to be focusing on the technology, and that's going to be the bulk of this demonstration. But it's important to know that we're also keeping an eye on other additional educational resources that are out there that are offering support. D2L is already starting to hear wonderful stories from some of our clients about their methods and avenues that they're taking to make sure that their teachers and their educators, as well as their students and parents, are feeling supported. So what we've done on this slide is actually aggregated some of our favorites from this week. And again, they are hot links that are on there, but you will be receiving the slide deck following the webinars. So you will have access to all of that content that's there to be able to help you moving forward. So it's wonderful. And like I said earlier, as we continue to collect information like this, we will be sharing it with our educators moving forward. So we've covered the current state. So let's move on to what is Brightspace. So if we think about Brightspace, or sorry, let's start with D2L. So when we start with D2L, D2L is the company. So if we think about an analogy, we could think about Apple. So Apple is also the company. Our product is Brightspace. Apple's product is the iPhone. So these are the two. This is kind of where there's a little bit of misunderstanding sometimes. So D2L is the company, Brightspace is the product. And then the other question that we often get is, what is Brightspace Community? And Brightspace Community is an online community space that we have developed that is inclusive of our clients as well as D2L experts and staff. What it is it's a place where we keep all of our documentation and reference material, but it also allows for a collaborative, open, questions and answer kind of space where clients are able to ask questions about specifics to the technology or possible use cases if they're looking for assistance. And other clients or D2L experts are actually able to participate with giving those answers and providing that information. So it's a wonderful shared space that clients and D2L staff are able to share. So that we've clicked off there on the Brightspace piece, and we're going to move into creating content. So what I want to do here before we move into the actual demo is just let you know some of my learning objectives for today. So we are going to be starting with some very basics with the content tool, because this is meant to be an introductory lesson, or an introductory demo. But we're going to look at how do we create a new unit and create a new lesson. How do we add materials? And those materials are going to come from a couple different places. I'm going to highlight how we can look at it from the student perspective, as well as see any items that might be posted to the course homepage. Now, as we move forward here, we're going to see that we go. As we move forward here, we're going to see how we can go ahead and post things to the course homepage, as well as hide content from our learners. So that would be in the event that we were looking to maybe put things ahead a little bit, or plan ahead and get things ready in advance of our students and students seeing it. So I'm just going to transfer out of my PowerPoint here over into my actual working environment, into my class here. Let's see. So what we see here is, there we go. So what we see here is my Brightspace elementary school classroom. And we've come in and we've landed on the home page. So as a teacher, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click into the content tool that's here, and that's going to take me into the space that lets me just start aggregating and building out my content material. Now, what we see here is a classroom that's already been started and has some units that are already built into it. However, if I was to move into another classroom, an empty classroom, for example, so I've never used Tool, I've never started building up my content, this is actually the view that you would see. So it looks a little bit different, but as you continue to build out, you'd see where these spaces would eventually get filled. So I'm actually just going to move back into my other classroom here. All right, so again, what we see here is some units that have already been built out. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to learn how to make a new unit that's here. And we're going to be doing that by using this wonderful blue button that's over here. Now, I'm sure all of you are thinking, amazing artwork, Heather. There's a reason that I was never an art teacher, as many of you can probably guess from those beautiful diagrams that I've added. So what I just want to do here is kind of go through a little bit of what we see here. So these are each individual units that have been created by the teacher in this course. They they are color coded, and those can be customized depending on your organization for what you see to suit you best. On the side here, we see these little waffles that are there, and what those do is they're drag and drop waffles that allow us to kind of just move quickly around our units if we would like to see them in a different order. In the math and the social studies units that are here, and the teacher's resources, we see these little arrows, which tells us that there's content inside of our units. The daily resources and the welcome to our classroom, there's nothing inside those. So I can click on them all I want, but there's actually nothing that's built out inside them yet. They're empty units. So what we're going to do is we're going to just begin from the very beginning. So we're going to look at opening a brand new unit, and we're going to start by clicking into it. And what it does is it brings us to kind of our title page in a way. This is where we get to title the unit. So I'm going to go ahead and call this one Reading and Writing. Here you can see the HTML editor, which lets us go ahead and create a variety of different options inside our unit. So we can go something simple like just typing in our content here. Welcome to your Learn from Home Reading and Writing unit. I can go ahead and save that if that's as far as I want to go, but there are a variety of other tools that you can use here. One of the tools that I'd like to just highlight here is the Insert Stuff tool, and that is exactly what it says. It gives you an option to highlight or to bring in a variety of different tools or different options into your description. But the one that I want to kind of call out here is the video note. And the reason I want to call out the video note as an option here is, hi everybody, is because it gives us the option to actually go ahead and integrate directly a very personal message with our students. And so that I could use this tool to help engage with students, make it much more personal, or in the event that I was maybe teaching like a kindergarten classroom, or I had early readers in my classroom, or potentially ESL learners who aren't reading at a very high capacity, and I wanted to provide instruction in a video recording, I can do that here. So welcome to our online classroom. This is your reading and writing unit. Once that's, and I can go ahead and add that into my lesson. Welcome the unit, and we'll leave that there, reading and writing. You can put as much information as you want into those details. And then I'm gonna go ahead and add that into, I'm gonna go ahead and insert that directly in there. So it's gonna pop up and has to be obviously like collected and inserted in, but it will populate directly in there for our students to go ahead and see and play directly inside inside the messaging that's there. So here we go, we can see it right there. I can click on it to play it for my students. This way it gives me that personal feel directly into my unit. So what I've done here is created a unit, and you can see this blue highlighted square around it. That blue highlighted square tells me that that's the unit that I'm working in. So if I click up to math, it goes into the math unit, it highlights that. So I'm going to continue to work inside this unit. I'm going to come over here to the add button, and I'm going to click into that again. And what I have is the option to build out a new lesson. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. You do not have to. You can build out your coursework directly inside the unit if you want. This just gives you an additional layering of organization. So I'm going to create a new lesson here. I'm going to call this Food for Thought. And my students are going to be learning about food in this one. So I can write a description, I can add another video, I can do that content as I see fit. So now I have a lesson that's here. So now working inside the lesson, I want to add some materials inside to my lesson. So I have quite a few different options that I can begin with. So one of the first ones that I'd like to call out here is just the drag and drop option. If you want to pull in content that you already have saved, maybe it's a Word document or something that you have in your account or in your own files here that you maybe want to pull out, would be an option for you to go ahead and do that here. You also have the ability to pull in from your Google Drive or your OneDrive directly. So once you're logged into your Google Drive or your OneDrive, it will have a picker there that will allow you to access that. So if you've already been building out and storing a variety of materials that you maybe were forward thinking or you've done in the past, it's easy enough for you to pull it in here as well. You also have the option to add some web links here and to add some fields or some context from that. So I'm going to go ahead and just use one of my favorite videos I used to use in my class, which is a pep talk from a Kid President, and I'm going to add that into my course here. So I'm just going to I grabbed the link. I'm going to go ahead and paste my YouTube link in there, and I'm going to call it a message from Kid President. Now here I have the option to choose if it's going to be embedded on the page in an iframe, or choose if I want my students to have to open it in a new tab. Especially for elementary school students, I would recommend using it in the iframe and embedding it on the page, just to prevent them from having to navigate of the outside of the workspace for them. What you see here is the video is nicely embedded into our lesson, and we're able to go ahead and move forward with that. So we see it right here. Now, some of you might be wondering, what is this eyeball with the cross through for it? And it shows up here, it says that it's hidden. What that is doing is hiding the content from our students. So maybe we're planning ahead, maybe we're thinking about what we want our students to do in week 2 or week 3, and we're getting that content in there so we're not rushing at the time. We can go ahead and hide that and have it released at a later time when it's more suiting for us. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and click into our math unit here. And I just want to highlight a couple things here too, because we did just see it as a video, but we can also add those links in that come from other websites as well. So this is actually a link to a PBS game for Dinosaur Builder that actually allows you to work on building graphs for your students. So we can actually also pull in content from web links as well, and that shows the full populated website right inside the lesson itself. Now, in the event that I came in here though, and I didn't really like the way this looked, and I wanted to delete any of my material or edit any of my material, this little three little ellipsis box over here provides me with some of those pieces. So if I wanted to edit the content, maybe I wanted to give it a different title, or I wanted to correct a spelling mistake, I can do that there. Or maybe I've decided that this is no longer the avenue that I want to see have happen for my students, so I can actually choose to delete that here. And it's going to give you 2 options to do this. It's going to have it removed, but still associated with the course, or permanently deleted, depending on what you want to have, or if you want to have the reference of that material later, you can make those choices there and how you want to delete that as well. When I'm looking at this, so currently this is hidden from my students, but let's say I want to launch this unit this week. So now I want this to be visible, but my students right now, they don't know what's been made visible to them, and they're not aware of it yet. So maybe I want to take it back and post it to the course homepage. So the course homepage is the landing page where the students will come in onto the course. And I can simply post to the course homepage by going back into these 3 ellipses and choosing the post to course homepage option. So what that's going to do is it's going to give me an option to be able to create a post to make it visible to my students. So check out this super cool game about math and dinosaurs. Wow, excellent typing skills this morning. And if I wanted to maybe add a little emoji there to make it a little bit more friendly, I can do that as well. Now what you see here is that I have an option to allow comments for my students. So maybe I want my students to leave me a comment. I can ask them to do that as well. Or if I choose not to, I can click that off and I can take away that commenting option. As well, down here, you have the option to post later or to post it right away. So if you decide to post later, maybe you're planning ahead, or you have a supply teacher coming in, or you're just doing a little bit of forward thinking, you have the ability to change the date as well as the time for when you're going to post that to your homepage. But for our purposes, we're just going to go ahead and click post now, and we're going to bring that in here. Now, if we wanted to be able to see what that looks like for a student, we have that option as well. So we can go over here to where we're signed in. So my very creative teacher name for my demo account is elementary teacher. You would see your own name there, but when you click that down there, you're going to see view as student, which allows me to click into that, and it'll flip me over to let me see what a standard view would look like for a student. So as it just populates and loads here, we will eventually see the content that I've brought into the course for the students. So there we go. There's my current post that's showing up here first. So that just puts it like right in the forefront. As soon as the student lands on their homepage and they log in, this is going to be the first post that they see that reminds them of any of the new content that I've released and that I'm having them bring into their course and get started with. And they can just click into it, and it's going to bring them into their student view that lets them see and start working on the content right there. So they're not having to click out and go into other pages. Everything is right there for them to be able to use. So I do realize that a lot of this information is very quickly done, and it is something that that you do need time to digest and to work through, and we certainly encourage you to do that. What I would recommend that you do moving forward is take the opportunity that you have to explore the individual tools and to give some of these things a try on your own. So what I would recommend that you do moving forward is, if you do have the workspace for Brightspace, just go ahead and create a new unit. Try creating a new lesson and adding some of your materials. See if you're able to have a look at it from the student perspective, as well as try posting it to the course homepage yourself. And then you can go ahead and hide and re-release content for your learners as well. So the final step today that we want to just highlight real quickly here is just some of the resources that are available to you. So again, you're going to have copies of all of this sent to you in a follow-up email that comes from D2L. So you will be able to click into any of this information here and follow along with the webinar recordings when you go to try to use your workspace or your course space. Or you can explore a little bit further if you need any further help. There's lots of tutorial videos that are there for you. Additional webinars that are coming up. Tomorrow, we will see an introduction to assessment in Brightspace. So when we were looking at creating information, you would have seen tools called assignments, quizzes, and discussions. Those are some of our assessment tools, and those will be highlighted tomorrow and dove into in a little bit more detail there as well. With regards to Thursday's webinar, we'll be seeing that coming through in a feedback piece. So we'll be looking at those as well. And again, all webinars are being offered twice a day. So once in the morning for elementary school teachers or educators at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and at 4 p.m. for secondary teachers and educators as well. And again, that's Eastern Standard Time. So we are aware that there is a time difference. So just make sure that, yeah, you do the math so that you're not missing them if you're planning to join us later. And if you haven't registered for them, the link for registration is there to add in the additional options as well. If you're hungry for more and you want to dive in and dig deep, in the follow-up email with this slide deck, you will have this content that's here with regards to lots of information. We do realize that it can be very overwhelming, and we're trying to provide as many resources as possible to our educators. So what we would recommend when you do look into exploring and expanding your Brightspace usage is to generally pick one tool and dive into it and really get an understanding of it before you move on to anything else. Also, please realize that when you do look at this chart, we've collected them and aggregated them based on the themes and how they can help you versus the actual moving from introductory to advanced. So just be conscious of the fact that they're grouped by theme versus by skill level or ability here. And that would take us to the end of our agenda here today. So I'd just like to go ahead and say thank you very much for taking the time to join me today, and wish you all health, safety as we continue to navigate this new era of education. And just one final thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to be with us. So thank you for being here, and have a wonderful rest of your day.